It was late. Angela was working overtime as she usually did. Most of the large 5-story office was empty, save for a few janitors and maybe the security guard, she estimated, glancing out the window to the parking lot below and seeing a scattered car or two. The project she was working on was far too important to leave undone at this point. She glanced at her watch. Another hour, and then she'd head out. Outside her corner office was a maze of cubicles and tables, shrouded mostly in darkness as many of the once bright and buzzing fluorescent lights had now dimmed to signal the end of the workday. Angela's supervisor had left half an hour ago. But Angela found a calmness in working late. No distractions, no interruptions, no... All of a sudden, she heard a door close in the distance. She looked up from her computer, somewhat startled by the dull sound. Maybe her supervisor had forgotten something and returned. Angela craned her neck further towards the window to get a better look, but saw nothing. Not wanting to get distracted, she put it out of her mind and continued working. 5 minutes later, she heard a door close again, this time slightly louder, slightly closer. Angela got up from her chair and stood in the doorway of her office, scanning the large open room. Her eyes passed over the very dimly lit desks, tables, and offices on the opposite side. She once again saw nothing. She backed back to her desk and sat down, not moving, trying to see if she'd hear another sound. A minute went by and nothing, so she continued working. Just as she was getting back into the zone, she was startled once again, this time by the sound of footsteps running around the office, passing right in front of her office door. She froze, slowly glancing up through the doorway. There was nothing there. She once again walked to the doorway and scanned the room. Nothing. She took a few steps into the open office and glanced around, taking a few steps toward the main cluster of cubicles. Could it be a prank? Was she imagining it? She stood in silence for a moment before returning to her office. When she arrived, though, she noticed something was different. A newspaper was on her desk. It hadn't been there before, and she didn't see or hear anyone enter while she was walking around. She circled the desk and glanced at the paper. It was a local paper from her hometown, dated almost 15 years ago. She remembered it well. She touched it with her finger, mostly to confirm it was really there, and that she wasn't dreaming. Now terrified, Angela turned and grabbed her bag and coat and decided to leave. But as she whirled around to face the desk, she realized in horror that the paper was now open. Open to a specific article. An article about a young man hanging himself off the town bridge. Angela slammed the paper shut and hurried toward the elevator. She pressed the button, but there was no response. She mashed the button repeatedly with no success. With a final shriek of frustration, Angela turned to head for the stairs. Next to the stairwell, though, she saw the break room lights flicker on for a brief second. and in the flash of light, she saw a figure standing in the doorway. A male shape with a disjointed neck and tattered limbs. Then all at once the light was gone and the area was once again plunged into darkness, except for the red glow of the exit light. Angela quickly ducked behind a row of cubicles and waited, attempting to catch her breath. From the silence she heard slow, heavy footsteps headed toward her. Then she heard a voice. It was deep and distorted, but recognizable.
Angela. Angela.
The footsteps stopped. Angela held her breath and listened for any sound. All of a sudden, the voice sounded like it was right in her ear.
Why did you turn your back on me, Angela?
Angela screamed and ran into her office, slamming and locking the door and pulling down the blinds to the main office so she couldn't see whatever horrible thing was stomping around out there. She began to hyperventilate. But now, as she looked around her office, she saw that there were over a dozen copies of the newspaper article, now strewn about, lining her desk, her walls, her filing cabinets. This can't be happening, she thought to herself. It just can't be. And then the phone rang, and everything seemed to calm down for a moment. Angela walked around her desk to the phone and picked it up cautiously. After a few moments, from the other end of the phone came a voice. Clear, and not distorted like the voice in the office. Why did you turn your back on me, Angela? Angela began to sob. It was a better opportunity, John, she screamed into the phone. They offered me money, real money. Do you know what our chances of success were trying to start out on our own? Angela tried to regulate her breathing. You took our idea and used it. Used it to make yourself succeed. You were greedy, Angela. You lost who you were. You didn't care about our idea, our commitment, our plan. You only cared what would benefit you. And you left me with nothing. Angela continued sobbing as the voice from earlier returned, this time seeming like it was all around her.
Angela. 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 Angela.
The door to her office flew open, and in the doorway stood the mangled corpse of her once friend and business partner. As he made his way toward her, Angela screamed, and her office light blew out, sending the room into darkness. The next morning, when Bennett Tech opened for business, they discovered Angela, who they determined had killed herself in her office. Later, her superiors would conclude that maybe the stress was too much for her to handle, and perhaps the pressures of corporate life were simply not for everyone.
You want a full reference number? 646.